Hello, my name is Kathleen McNamara, and for my presentation I'll be talking about punishment in mythology versus the death penalty, and I'll be mostly looking into the death penalty today and versus the death penalty in ancient Greece. To start off, I'll be using a few stories from mythology that we've already learned about in Ovid's Metamorphoses and Virgil's The Aeneid. Now, these are not really death penalty punishments, but these are cruel and unusual punishments, which, in my personal opinion, I believe that the death penalty is a cruel and unusual punishment. So, to start off, mythology. There are 3 stories that I will be talking about. The first one is the image on the top right, is Prometheus being tied to a rock, and an eagle coming to eat his liver every single night until Hercules comes to rescue him, and which he was punished because Zeus found out that Prometheus didn't give him the perfect cuts of meat and was able to save everybody, which is a very unusual punishment. And the second one is on the bottom right from the story of Narcissus when he falls in love with his own image in the pond and then is turned into a flower because he is so in love with himself, thus therefore getting the whole narcissism meaning. And the last one, which I do not picture, but I thought was an interesting story, which is very unusual to say the least, is whenever Zeus turns Io into a cow. And those are the 3 stories from mythology that I found more interesting. So the next one is cruel and unusual punishment from ancient Greece, very specifically. So there were 3 sentences for the death penalty in ancient Athens that, depending on what exactly you did, this is what you would get, all resulting in death, obviously. The 3 sentences was 1, a person was thrown into a pit and was just left there to rot until they die, obviously. Not giving any food or water or anything. And then the second one, they were beaten to death with a sword. Joshua Browers, he mentions that it was also known as a tympanum, which literally just translates into a sword. So yes, they were beaten with a sword or just killed and stabbed with a sword. And lastly, the third one was they were forced to drink hemlock, which is a highly poisonous plant found in Europe. So the next thing I will be talking about is punishments in ancient Athens, which is almost what I talked about. I wanted to touch on the 3 death sentences first. So this next one, it was punishments in classical Athens. So what they did was they put all of the rules and laws that they had in the city for everyone to be able to see them, so it was there at all times, so that if they did anything, they know that they would be punished for it. And they saw it more as a physical object than anything else. And it seemed almost as though the rules, that if you broke anything in this time, the only punishment was also almost like just death. I found that one thing was you could have stolen something small, like a piece of food, that would have resulted in death, and then obviously if you killed someone it would result in death. But then I also found in the same note from Joshua Browers, he also wrote that the death penalty is the most severe form of punishment in Athens and usually reserved for only the most severe offenders of the law or found guilty of intentional homicide. So, at the end I'll be talking about it, but I'll say this now. If it's basically the same thing, so if you killed back then, you would get the death penalty, but with those 3 sentences, versus now, you would get the death penalty, but by sitting in an electric chair almost, or being drugged. So yes. Next is the history of the death penalty, and I already said that in America, and then some other countries obviously use different things, but specifically in America, we used to use the electrical chair, and then also now that they give you a shot basically where it's poisons and goes into the blood and kills you, which is our death penalty. And I put, is it also considered cruel and unusual compared to being thrown into a pit or being stabbed with a sword? In my personal opinion, yes. I think it is cruel to give someone a shot just to kill them. Although, yes, it is very bad to murder people. Don't get me wrong. But, yes. So the death penalty is just, whenever someone commits a murder, the state enforces, death, is killed because of the crime that they committed by the state. They are usually held in prison for a while before this, and they go in and out of trials. But, yes. So it is used all around the world, in 58 countries, including China, the US, Iran, and Vietnam. Those are the highest ranking ones. And I found this information on the Death Penalty Information Center. So they, a lot of countries have already abolished them, including a few states, which I've mentioned over here. Here's a statistic from the United States specifically. The ones in darker red, like Texas and Oklahoma, those are the ones that have the most executions per capita. So a little bit of history behind it was it started after World War II, after the Right to Life movement, and obviously it is still used today, but a lot of places have abolished it because they realized it is cruel and unusual punishment. So I assume they would just kind of keep them in jail until their trial they're found guilty or they're found innocent, or they are just kept in prison and for life. So punishable crimes for the death penalty include murder and genocide, which are the two big ticket punishments. Very specifically Texas, since that's where a lot of us are from in this class. I found that in Texas, the biggest reason is critical homicide with 1 of 9 aggravating circumstances, which that information is also from the Death Penalty Information Center website. And also New Mexico actually abolished the death penalty, but with first-degree murder and very specific circumstances, they will still use the death penalty. And another fact is New York actually abolished it in 2007, but they recently also brought it back. And as I said beforehand, they do compare by being very cruel and unusual punishments, all resulting in because of murder or something else that they've done. But yes, I hope you have enjoyed listening to how the two compare, a little history about ancient Greece and their death penalty with the sentences versus the death penalty used today, and why it should be abolished. Thank you.